We're live. Oh, good evening. We have our class, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, in Swami Sarvadevananda's absence. I will be reading, and we'll pick up from where we left off at the last class. So we'll start with our opening prayer. Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravana Mangalam Shri Madatatam Bhuvigrananti Ye Bhuridajana. O Lord, your words like sweet nectar refresh the afflicted. Your words, which poets have sung in verses, vanquish the sins of the worldly. Blessed are they who hear of you, and blessed indeed are they who speak of you. How great is their reward. So, some of you may remember that the last time we had a class, it's a little confusing here at Vedanta Society because each person who does a gospel class reads from a different part of the book, so it can be a little confusing. But last time we looked at the last visit of Sri Ramakrishna to Keshab Chandra Sen, and where we left it was that Keshab had to leave the room. He started coughing uncontrollably. They had a wonderful conversation, and at the very end, Keshab started coughing uncontrollably, as you might recall, and he had to leave the room holding on to the wall, a mere skeleton covered with skin. And this was in November 28, 1883. And he left the body on January 8th, 1884. So just a month and a week or something after this meeting, of tuberculosis, which was contagious to a certain extent, but at least Sri Ramakrishna didn't catch it from him. And so there's a little passage still remaining after Keshab leaves the room. So we're going to start there. It's at the Kamal Kutir, the lotus cottage, where Keshab lived in Calcutta. And M, of course, has come, and so many people are there in the room, Keshab's disciples. So this is on page 324 for those who are following in the book. Some refreshments had been arranged for the master. Keshab's eldest son was seated near him. Amrita introduced the boy and requested Sri Ramakrishna to bless him. The master said, "It is not given to me to bless anyone." And with a sweet smile, he stroked the boy's body gently. Actually, there's a funny little exchange here, which is that when Amrita asked Sri Ramakrishna to bless him, he said, "Put your hand on his head." As they do a blessing, put your hand on his head and bless him. So then Sri Ramakrishna says, "It's not given me to bless." And then when Sri Ramakrishna starts stroking the boy's body gently, Amrita says, "All right, in that case, stroke his body." Amrita is the Keshab's eldest son, I think. Amrita, no. The eldest. We're talking about the eldest son. Amrita, I'm not sure. Amrita is another relative of the family, another man of the family, or sorry, we don't know right now who is Amrita. So then Sri Ramakrishna. And then everybody laughs. Sri Ramakrishna asked, Amrita asked Sri Ramakrishna to bless the boy, putting his hand on his head, and he said that, no, but he's stroking him affectionately. And then Amrita says, "All right, then you stroke his body." And everybody laughs. So funny little interchange there. Then Sri Ramakrishna says to the devotees, "I cannot say such a thing as, 'May you be healed.' I never ask the Divine Mother to give me the power of healing. I pray to her only for pure love." This is one of Sri Ramakrishna's, from his own experience. Actually, he did in a couple of cases, take on the illness of somebody else. One was the case of someone suffering from, what's that skin disease when the, No, when the skin loses its pigment.
Oh, vitiligo.
Vitiligo. So apparently he touched that man's hands, and then he had to suffer very much from pain after that. But the more interesting and important case is when Mathur Babu, the proprietor, the son-in-law of Rani Rashmani, his wife fell dangerously ill, and it looked like she was going to die. And this was terrifying to Mathur because his connection with the temple and with the service of Sri Ramakrishna was through his wife, because his wife was the daughter of Rani Rashmani. If his wife should die, then he has no more connection with the temple, and probably he would lose his position as the main manager of the temple and would lose the opportunity to serve Sri Ramakrishna. So Sri Ramakrishna saved his wife, actually. Somehow mystically took the disease on himself and had to suffer for 6 months, he said. That's the only case we know. But so many of us want some tangible results from our spiritual life. And we want them to be tangible results like everything in life should be good, and my health should be perfect, and I should get a good job and get a good salary, and all of that should happen once I start calling on God. And so Sri Ramakrishna, that on the one hand, we should remember that is a mistake. That if we think that spiritual life is for that purpose, then we don't have the clear thinking. The spiritual life is for opening our heart, for deepening our connection with the divine, ultimately for knowing who we are, and for tasting some peace in life, and not for gaining health and wealth and name and fame and all the kind of things that we crave for, that everybody craves for these things. So it's Sri Ramakrishna here is, in a sense, also cautioning us, actually, we get what we seek. If we seek for good health, we may get good health, but then we don't get God. If we seek for money, of course, there's the case of the man who was praying intensely to God. God, Lord, let me win the lottery. I really want to win the lottery. And it was intense prayer. I really want money. Please, Lord, you can arrange this. Let me win the lottery. Finally, after a lot of intense prayer, he hears a voice, a divine voice, which says, "My son, at least meet me halfway. Buy a lottery ticket." So we also have to do our part. If we want money, we have to work for it, or at least buy a lottery ticket. If you don't have a certain modicum of health, you can't do spiritual practice, and that's absolutely true. And that's why there's that Sanskrit saying, "Shariram adyam khalu sadhanam." I'm missing one word of it. Anyhow, the body is, you need a healthy body to do intense spiritual disciplines. That's definitely true. But at the same time, perfect health is not the goal. If you want perfect health, do Hatha Yoga. So Sri Ramakrishna says he never asked the Divine Mother for that power. And if you get that power, you get lines of people coming to you, you get thousands of people coming to get healed. But Sri Ramakrishna wanted to meet the sincere spiritual seekers, those who are really seeking the divine. And to those, actually, though he says here, it is not given to me to bless anyone, he did bless countless seekers with the spiritual experiences, with the vision of the divine, with the direct experience of God. So he did bless people, but this kind of blessing that is being asked for this boy, who knows what kind of blessing it means. Just bless him. Sri Ramakrishna couldn't bless for ordinary worldly purposes. Rarely he did so. There's another case, of course, of the man who afterwards became a publisher of books, and he wanted money, and Sri Ramakrishna knew it, and finally, towards the end of his life, he said, all right, let him have it, and he got it also. So there is that. Now he's going to talk about Keshab. Is Keshab a small person? He is respected by all, seekers after wealth as well as holy men. Once I visited Dayananda, who was then staying at a garden house. I saw he was extremely anxious about Keshab's coming. He went out every few minutes to see whether he had arrived. I learned later on that Keshab had made an appointment with him that day. Dayananda was a prominent Hindu reformer who wanted to go back to the Vedas, and he didn't. He emphasized the traditional rituals of the Vedas, and that organization which he founded is called the Arya Samaj. It is still in existence, and they chant beautifully. They do Vedic sacrifices and things like that. So Sri Ramakrishna says, Keshab, I understood, had no faith in the sacrifices and the deities mentioned in the Vedas, this Homa ritual which we do here after the big pujas. Referring to this, Dayananda said, why? The Lord has created so many things. Could he not make deities as well? Interestingly, Sri Ramakrishna throws in here something which is not translated, probably because it's not easy to translate. He says that Dayananda used to call the Bengali language as Gauranda Bhasha. And Gauranda is a kind of funny word, because Gauda is the traditional ancient term for the Bengal. And so it could mean something like the language of that Gauda land. But there's a double meaning, because Anda also means egg. And so Dayananda was most likely poking fun at the Bengali language, partly because it's quite Sanskritic, a lot of Sanskrit words, and Dayananda was a very profound Sanskrit scholar, but the Bengalis pronounce Sanskrit with a heavy Bengali accent. So those who are purists and Sanskrit scholars, non-Bengali Sanskrit scholars, they will poke a little fun at the Bengali pronunciation. So here he says that, see, Dayananda used to refer to the Bengali language as Gauranda Bhasha. Bhasha means language. The Gauranda, the Gouda egg or something, it's a little bit of a pun, it sounds like. And interestingly that he throws that in there, maybe to show that Dayananda was a real purist, and even then, even with that attitude, he was eager to meet Keshab. He was eager to meet him. Then Sri Ramakrishna goes on praising Keshab. He says, Keshab is free from the pride of a small-minded religious teacher. To many people he has said, if you have any doubts, go there to have them solved, meaning go see Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. It is my way too to say, what shall I do with people's respect? Let Keshab's virtues increase 1,000,000-fold. Keshab is certainly a great man. Everybody respects him, seekers after wealth as well as holy men. Thus did Sri Ramakrishna praise Keshab before the latter's disciples. How beautiful that Keshab is in the last weeks of his life, and Sri Ramakrishna, very close friend, a close associate of Keshab, has come to see him before he dies. And they don't hardly mention his illness. They talk all about spiritual subjects. And then, before he goes, he praises Keshab to Keshab's disciples. I tell you, there's one way to make me like you, praise my guru. And one way to make me immediately not like you, criticize my guru. Yes, it's true. So we have a tradition in the Vedanta society because a number of monks are authorized to be gurus and to give mantra initiation. And the tradition is, and they're human beings. They have flaws also. They're gurus, but they also have flaws. Do not criticize any Swami who is a guru unless you're absolutely sure that there's none of that Swami's disciples in earshot. So we don't do that. We don't criticize. And it's better not to criticize even if they are, no one is around. Why criticize the Swamis who are gurus? But anyhow, people are people, so people will also criticize. And I know many people criticize my guru. I remember this is an aside, a devotee was criticizing my guru rather sharply. And there were two of us who were his disciples, and we kind of looked at each other. A few months later, that lady found out that I was a disciple. She said, "Oh, you're a disciple of such so-and-so? Oh, I see." And I could tell that she remembered that she had been criticizing him before me, so she obviously was embarrassed. So we don't do that. But this is Sri Ramakrishna praising Keshab before his disciples. Now, so Sri Ramakrishna takes the refreshments, and he's ready to go. And the devotees accompany him to the cab, of course, horse-drawn cab, which was standing in the street. While coming down the stairs, the master noticed that there was no light on the ground floor. He said to Amrita and Keshab's other disciples, "These places should be well lighted. A house without light becomes stricken with poverty. Please see that it doesn't happen again." Then Sri Ramakrishna left for Dakshineshwar with one or two devotees. So this is the close of his last visit to Keshab and the disciples. Interesting, I don't know what to make of this. Sri Ramakrishna also adhered to some of the common customs of Bengal, and he used to observe the indications of the almanac that a certain time was auspicious or inauspicious and those kind of things. And apparently he used to say, if those who believe in those things, they should observe them. So he's left for Dakshineshwar with one or two devotees. Surely M is among them. But on his way, he stops at Jai Gopal Sen's house. And it's about 7 o'clock in the evening when they reach this place. And they have a discussion, a Q&A session, as it were, with Jai Gopal Sen and other devotees, neighbors of Jai Gopal's who are there in his house. And it's quite a discussion. But before that, and this is not put in the English translation here, there's a long soliloquy from M. And I'm going to read a different translation of this soliloquy, where he's just reflecting on Sri Ramakrishna's purity and his God intoxication and his constant reiteration that the goal of life is to know God and nothing else. And then he's reflecting, but why do I not feel that longing for God and all of that? It's quite interesting. So this is not quite the beautiful translation of Swami Nikhilananda, but it will give us a sense. The devotees' minds were on so many things. The master was intoxicated day and night with love of God. He had married, but did not live the usual married life with his wife. He respected his wife, worshipped her. He conversed with her on spiritual matters, sang divine songs, worshipped God and meditated. But there was no worldly relationship with her. The master saw that God alone is the substance and the rest is insubstantial. He could not touch money, metal objects, metal pots or dishes. He could not touch women. If he happened to touch them, he would feel a tingling sensation in the place of contact, as if it were stung by a catfish. If money or gold was put in his hands, they bent and stiffened, and his breathing stopped. Breathing was resumed when they were discarded. The devotees' minds were on so many things. Should worldly life be given up? What is the need for carrying on studies? There would not be any need for a job if one did not marry. Should one give up one's parents? And I have married, I have children, and I have to support the family. What will happen to me? Also, I wish to remain absorbed day and night in the love of God. I watch Sri Ramakrishna and ponder, what am I doing? He is dwelling on God day and night continuously, like the uninterrupted flow of oil, while I am thinking day and night of worldly things. A vision of him is like a little light in a small place, in the sky overcast with clouds. How is one to solve the problem of life now? He has shown us how to do it, but still there's this hesitation. So he's saying the devotees are thinking like this. Obviously, it's M who's thinking like this. Maybe some of the other devotees are thinking in a similar line. Breaking the sand dam, let me realize my dream. Is it truly a sand dam? A dam made of sand is easy to break, right? It's soft. And the dam is holding back a tremendous reservoir of water. That water is the knowledge of God, the love of God. And if we just break that dam, we'd be inundated with it. Then why am I not able to give it up? Perhaps there is not much strength. There won't be any calculating thought like this if that kind of love for him develops. Who is able to resist the flood tide sweeping over the Ganges? If only a drop of that love dawns, the love, the beginning of which made Gauranga put on the garb of a begging monk, the love which made Jesus take to the wilderness without concern for anything else, and which made him give up his body willingly, beholding the face of the Father, the love which made the Buddha give up the enjoyment of sovereignty, means the kingdom, and become a recluse. If only a drop of that is felt, this transient world is utterly forgotten. M always struggled with this call to renunciation. Sri Ramakrishna is teaching to his intimate disciples, those who would become monks later, renounce. And M was always hearing that and feeling torn because he had a family to support. And then Sri Ramakrishna would say, no, not for you. And of course he had his special role in the play to record this book, which is, and thereby himself became immortalized in the world, of course. But what is the remedy for those who are weak, who do not experience the awakening of that love, who are in the world and whose legs are shackled by Maya? I will not leave the company of the loving and all-renouncing great saint. Let me see what he says. The devotees were thinking along this line. So this is what he says, and then we get to the gospel. We're going back to Swami Nikhilananda now, page 325. They've reached Jai Gopal Sen's house, and in the drawing room, Jai Gopal's relatives and neighbors had gathered. Vaikuntha, Jai Gopal's brother, said to the master, "Sir, we are worldly people. Please give us some advice." It means we are in samsara. We are worldly people. Doesn't necessarily mean our minds are only occupied with job and money and all that. It means we are in the world. We have families to support. We have jobs. We are also interested in spiritual life. But look at us. We're caught. We don't find time for spiritual practice and all of that. So worldly people. He recognizes that he doesn't have much time. As M is describing in this soliloquy, it's difficult to dedicate our whole mind to God. So Sri Ramakrishna tells him, do your duty to the world after knowing God. With one hand, hold to the lotus feet of the Lord, and with the other, do your work. Then Vaikuntha asks this question, is the world unreal? And this is one of the things that comes again and again in the Vedanta teachings. Is the world unreal? The term used is mithya. Mithya in the Bengali language, it's a common word. Also, it means false. It means false or rubbish or untruth or all these things. So he asks, is the world unreal? Is this world mithya? And Sri Ramakrishna answers, yes, it is unreal as long as one has not realized God. Very interesting. As long as one has not realized God, it is unreal. After realization, it becomes real. Almost backwards of, you mean what Shankaracharya would say. The world seems to be real, but when you realize Brahman, when you realize your true infinite nature, you realize that this world was just a dream and only Brahman is real. But here Sri Ramakrishna flips it, as it were, and he says, this world is unreal, is mithya, so long as we have not realized God. As long as we do not know the divine, as long as we do not know him, so long we can call it mithya, we can call it unreal. And why? Now he's going to give an explanation of what this mithya world is like, this false world. Unreal may not be, it not be a complete translation. We have to also understand this falseness of it. Yes, it is mithya. Let's use the term mithya. Yes, it is mithya as long as one has not realized God. Through ignorance, human beings forget God and speak always of I and mine. They sink down, entangled in Maya, deluded by lust and gold. Maya robs them of their knowledge to such an extent that they cannot find the way of escape, though such a way exists. Okay, so we forget God and we get entangled in our lives and forget that there's a higher ideal. Most people are in this condition. We few seekers have gotten a glimpse that there is a higher something. We want something more than just chasing the worldly pleasures, name and fame, enjoyment, money, power, all these things. And Sri Ramakrishna says, Maya robs us of our knowledge to such an extent that we cannot find the way of escape, though such a way exists. And then he sings a song. It's a kind of pathetic song, because it's a very powerful first line. When such delusion veils the world through Mahamaya's spell, that Brahma is bereft of sense and Vishnu loses consciousness, what hope is left for men? I'll sing the Bengali, that first line. Emni maha mayar maya, emni maha mayar maya, rekhe choki kuhakore, Brahma Vishnu achaitam. Oh, I've missed the melody a little bit. Jibe ki janite pare. Jibe. So the human being doesn't say men. That's the English translation. What can they do? How can they? When even Brahma and Vishnu are achaitanya. They are without consciousness. They are rendered stupefied by Mahamaya. What hope is there for us? This is the song. And then there's a couple of lines in the song that the fish, there's a certain trap made for fish in the stream or the river. And there's a channel and the fish enter the trap and they could just go back out through the channel. But once they're in the trap, they don't come out. Somehow they can't find their way back out. There's a small hole that goes into the basket or whatever it is. And so the narrow channel first is made, and there the trap is set. But open though the passage lies, the fish, once safely through the gate, do not come out again. And then the second one is the silkworm. The silkworm weaves its own cocoon. Yet even though a way leads forth, encased within its own cocoon, the worm remains to die. So the silkworm creates its own cocoon, and then it dies there. Well, though it could come out, but it doesn't. It dies in its cocoon, because the harvesters are there to harvest the silk, and they kill the worms and then harvest the silk and make the cloth, etc. So he sings this song, and then he says, "You all know from your experience how impermanent the world is. Look at it this way: how many people have come into the world and again passed away. People are born and they die. This moment the world is, and the next it is not. It is impermanent. Those you think to be your very own will not exist for you when you close your eyes in death. Again, you see people who have no immediate relatives, and yet for the sake of a grandson, they will not go to Benares to lead a holy life. Oh, what will become of my Haru then, they argue." So this is the practice of discernment, of viveka, that Sri Ramakrishna asks us also to do. To look and really understand, yes, there's a saying, no? This too shall pass. When things go rough, we can say, this too shall pass. And that's, I've heard that's a thing people say to give us a little patience. Yes, this too shall pass when something bad happens. But when something good happens, actually also we have to say, this too shall pass. Because everything passes. Everything is impermanent. Until we see the permanent within the impermanent, until we see the nitya within the anitya. The anitya, but let's face it, everything is impermanent. Even the sun. If you talk to an astronomer or a physicist, he or she will tell you that the sun is a giant fusion engine full of hydrogen, and the hydrogen is fusing into helium, and that releases a tremendous amount of energy. That's also of course, the same science which makes for nuclear weapons. They're also fusion engines, which they reach a certain level of intensity, and a fusion reaction takes place, releasing tremendous amounts of light and heat and energy. So that's what the sun is doing. The sun is pretty big. There's a lot of hydrogen there. But it's not infinite. It's not an infinite source of hydrogen. It's a physical thing. It's limited. It's going to run out of hydrogen one day. And then it becomes, what they say, a red giant. And then ultimately it collapses and becomes a white dwarf. So when it becomes a red giant, its outer circumference is beyond the orbit of the Earth. So this Earth will die. It will be reabsorbed into the sun. There's nothing we can do about it. Most likely we won't be here. But it will happen. It will happen. This Earth itself will die. So when we get so worked up about all the things going on here, but this Earth also had a beginning, it will have an end. Nothing left. So that's called this practice of viveka. And Sri Ramakrishna is reminding them. He has just been to Keshab Sen, where he's met a dying man who's about to leave the body. And now he's reminding Vaikuntha and the other people at Jayagopal's place, people are born and they die. This moment the world is, and the next it is not. It is impermanent. Those you think to be your very own will not exist for you when you close your eyes in death. Well, then he gives this poke. This idea that you have no close relatives, then now is the time you have no more worldly duties. Put your whole mind on God. Go to Benares. Plunge into spiritual disciplines. But no, people are unable to do it. So this kind of world is mithya, anitya. Though a way remains for the fish to escape, it does not go out again. Though the worm can escape, it stays there to die. This kind of world is mithya, is anitya, is false, is illusory and impermanent. Now, then a neighbor asks a reasonable question. He asks, "Why, sir, should one hold to God with one hand and to the world with the other? Why should one even stretch out one hand to hold to the world if it is impermanent?" That's a good question. Sri Ramakrishna says, the world is not impermanent if one lives there after knowing God. Interestingly, in Bengali, he rarely uses the term God. He just says, "Tanke jene," knowing him or knowing her, knowing the divine. If you can know the divine, if you can realize the divine, then then we don't say it's impermanent. And then he turns to another song. "O mind, you do not know how to farm. Fallow lies the field of your life. If you had only worked it well, how rich a harvest you might reap. Hedge it about with Kali's name, if you would keep your harvest safe. This is the stoutest hedge of all, for death himself cannot come near it." This is one of the famous Ram Prasad songs, and it is sung often still nowadays. We sing this song. I heard it sung at least once this last visit to India, once or twice. I think it was sung here for Kali Puja, wasn't it? Did that lady who sang Ram Prasad songs? She sang this song. "Mon re krishi kaj januna, mon re krishi kaj januna." Oh mind, you krishi kaj, you don't know how to farm. I'm just looking for the full, only part 251. They've only given part of the translation here. It's such a beautiful song rather. "Sooner or later will dawn the day when you must forfeit your precious field. Gather, O mind, what fruit you may. Sow for your seed the holy name of God that your Guru has given to you, faithfully watering it with love. And if you should find the task too hard, call upon Ram Prasad for help." Interesting. So it's the field is the field of our life. And what do we plant there? We plant the seed of the holy name, which the Guru has given us. And water the field with love. And gather the harvest from this life. What a rich harvest you might reap if you had worked that field well. Worked that field, which is the field of your life. Fallow lies the field of your life. You could have sown the name of God and reaped a rich harvest. What is the harvest? Knowing God, finding Mother, seeing Mother in everything, realizing that I am Mother's eternal child, realizing my true nature as infinite consciousness. This would be the harvest. And this field of your life, hedge it about with Kali's name. We put a fence or a hedge around the field to keep the animals out. This hedge is so stout, the hedge of Kali's name, that even death cannot approach. Death cannot come near this hedge. So it's quite a poetic in original Bengali. It's also quite poetic, but we can't really quite get that. So this is the song that Sri Ramakrishna sings, and then he asks, "Did you listen to the song? Hedge it about with Kali's name, if you would keep your harvest safe. Surrender yourself to God, and you will achieve everything." And again, quoting the song, "This is the stoutest hedge of all, for death himself cannot come near it." So this is the this is the teaching. He says, this idea of surrender yourself to God, actually, this is difficult to translate properly because it's this term sharanagata ho. It means on the one hand surrender and on the other hand take refuge. So it doesn't mean, it has this dual meaning. On the one hand, there's a relinquishing of self-effort in a sense, and yet that takes a tremendous amount of effort. And this taking refuge, seeking shelter in the divine. How? Through the divine name. This is the stoutest hedge of all, for death himself cannot come near it. Yes, it is a strong hedge indeed. If you but realize God, you won't see the world as unsubstantial. One who has realized God knows that God himself has become the world and all living beings. So this is Sri Ramakrishna's, it comes back again and again to this. This is what our brother calls the Vijnana Vedanta. After realization, we know that the divine has become everything. We see everything as full of consciousness, both the world and all living beings. Then it is no longer unreal. Then it is real. But the reality of it is the divine. And then he gives some instructions how to practice this. When you feed your child, you should feel that you are feeding God. You should look on your father and mother as veritable manifestations of God and the Divine Mother, and serve them as such. If one enters the world after realizing God, one does not generally keep up physical relations with one's wife. Both of them are devotees. They love to talk only of God and pass their time in spiritual conversation. Remember, he's talking to a room full of men. There are no women present in the room. So if he was in this room, he would say, if one enters the world after realizing God, one does not generally keep up physical relations with one's spouse. That would be a more accurate way to say it. Both of them are devotees. They love to talk only of God and pass their time in spiritual conversation. They serve other devotees of God, for they know that God alone has become all living beings. And, knowing this, they devote their lives to the service of others. Now, the neighbor, he complains, "But sir, such a husband and wife are not to be found anywhere." Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, they can be found, though they may be very rare. Worldly people cannot recognize them. In order to lead such a life, both husband and wife must be spiritual. And I often say that I think that if a devotee couple sincerely wants to practice this, all power to them. But they both have to want it. If one wants it and the other doesn't, it'll break the marriage. They have to have that deep spiritual foundation. They have to have if the physical relations between in a couple are to be given up, there has to be another basis for their deep connection, a basis for maintaining their deep love for each other and their support of each other. So if they don't have that deeper spiritual side, it will be very difficult. It should be actually a natural development. as one's spiritual life deepens, one no longer needs that kind of connection with the spouse. It is possible to lead such a life if both of them have tasted the bliss of God. Okay, here we have it. This is how it's possible. In fact, that is really the only way also to practice brahmacharya, celibacy, whether you're married or not. Tasting the bliss of God, tasting that joy, other pleasures become insipid. God's special grace is necessary to create such a couple. Otherwise, there will always be misunderstanding between them. In that case, the one has to leave the other. Life becomes very miserable if husband and wife do not agree. The wife will say to her husband day and night, "Why did my father marry me to such a person? I can't get enough to eat or to feed my children. I haven't clothes enough to cover my body or to give to my children. I haven't received a single piece of jewelry from you. How happy you have made me. Ah, you keep your eyes closed and mutter the name of God. Now do give up all these crazy ideas." So he's sort of imitating the wife who doesn't have that kind of spiritual yearning. In this case, he's talking, of course, to a room of men, some of whom are sincere spiritual seekers for sure. Then a devotee says, and we don't know who, "There are such obstacles. Certainly. Besides, the children may be disobedient. There is no end of difficulties. Now, sir, what is the way?" Life is full of difficulties. I'm reminded, I've told this story before, that I was buying a suitcase I think it was West Hollywood. There's a luggage store. I wanted a really lightweight, small suitcase for carry-on luggage. And there was a young man was looking after the store. I think he was probably the son of the proprietors, or maybe he was an employee, but probably the son. And so anyway, we got to talking, and so obviously seeing that I'm a monk, he asked me, "So is monastic life hard?" And I asked him, "Is life hard?" And he reflected for a moment or two, and then he said, "Yeah." So life is hard, whether it's monastic life or married life or single life, or life can be hard. And Sri Ramakrishna basically says, yes, it's going to be hard, but hold on to God. Take refuge in the Lord. Take refuge in the Divine Mother. Surrender everything at her feet. That makes it at least a little easier. So Sri Ramakrishna says, it is extremely difficult to practice spiritual discipline and at the same time lead a householder's life. There are many handicaps: disease, grief, poverty, misunderstanding with one's spouse, and disobedient, stupid, and stubborn children. I don't have to give you a list of them because they know all the difficulties. They're all householders. But still, there is a way out. One should pray to God, going now and then into solitude, and make efforts to realize Him. Then the neighbor says, "Must one leave home then?" Sri Ramakrishna, no, not altogether. Whenever you have leisure, go into solitude for a day or two. At that time, don't have any relations with the outside world, and don't hold any conversation with worldly people on worldly affairs. You must live either in solitude or in the company of holy men. There's a wonderful idea. Sadhu Sangha, or go alone somewhere. or if you're going to be with people, be with other spiritual seekers, people who are dedicated to spiritual life. This is really nice. Look at this. When you have time, when you have the ability, drop everything. Set aside a week. Instead of some people, vacation for enjoyment or relaxation. But this kind of vacation is not vacation. It's setting aside time to go on retreat. Whether you do it alone or you go to some place. People come regularly to the Vedanta Society and spend a week here or spend 3-4 days here. Why? Why do they want to come? Some people come because they have their kids with them and they want to take their kids to Universal Studios. That side is also there. But some people come because they just want to be here. They want to be at the temple. They want to be able to come every day to the temple early in the morning with other monks and devotees who are meditating here, meditate together. Then they want to, they'll have lunch with us, they'll have their meals with us. We have some spiritual discussions. They can ask Swami Sarvadevanandaji or other senior monks their spiritual doubts. They attend the classes. They want to get immersed in this spiritual atmosphere. And it is a spiritual atmosphere. So we can create that spiritual atmosphere in our homes also. But sometimes it helps to get away from home, get away from our family, our usual entanglements, our usual arguments, and come here. Or some other place, or go to a place where you're completely alone and don't have any relations with the outside world. That's even in those days he had to give that instruction. Now, with these things in our pockets, it's very hard. There was a group of Zen Buddhists who came to the Vedanta Society the other day. They had a remarkable retreat. They call it a street retreat. And they have their retreat just on the streets of LA. And before they start, they leave their cell phone at home. So they're without phone and without money. The leader of the group had a cell phone for emergencies, but kept it off. So there are 5 of them having retreat on the streets, and obviously doing exactly this. Having no relations with the outside world means no relations with their usual outside world, and they're put into a completely different environment. So the questions go on, but probably we're not going to finish this conversation. There's a neighbor who then asks, how can you recognize a holy person? Sadhu, how can you recognize? Because he says, either go to a lonely place or keep the company of sadhu, sadhu sangha. And he says, how can we recognize a sadhu? Sri Ramakrishna says, one who has surrendered body, mind, and innermost self to God is surely a sadhu, a holy man. Whose mind, life, and inner self has gone completely towards the divine, towards the Lord. The mon, pran, antaratma, ishvare, goto hoeche. So the mind, the life force, the inner self has gone completely to the divine. One who has renounced lust and gold is surely a sadhu. One who does not regard woman, he's talking now about men, of course. He is a holy man who does not regard woman with the eyes of a worldly person. He never forgets to look upon a woman as his mother and to offer her his worship if he happens to be near her. The holy man, the sadhu, constantly thinks of God and does not indulge in any talk except about spiritual things. Furthermore, he serves all beings. knowing that God resides in everybody's heart. These in general are the signs of a sadhu. Fascinating. He gives all these beautiful things. On the one hand, has mastered the lust instinct and looks on the opposite sex as divine and sees the divine in all beings and therefore serves everyone. So beautiful. These are not so easy to only talk about spiritual things. This even in our monastery, you would be surprised to know, perhaps, or maybe not, if you are at the table. We have plenty of worldly talk too. When I first joined the monastery in Trabuco, I used to get frustrated because I thought at the monastery table there would always be only talk about God and spiritual things, and I was reading the books and everything was new and I was so excited. And they want to talk about what? About sports and about movies and about food. Those seemed like to me, to my mind, were the main subject of discussion. Sports and food and movies and recycle and repeat. So I would get frustrated with that because those monks, they'd been there for 20, 30, 40 years. They had read all the books, they'd had all the discussions. Now they were doing their practice, and they were holy men, they were sadhus, but they were not, it's not going to be that they're going to always be talking about these things. But even then, there's one monk I know who is about my age. He always tries to he'll bring up some spiritual subject, even if just for the sake of doing that. And it makes for great conversation. He'll say something like, well, Sri Ramakrishna says such and such. What do you think he meant by that exactly? And then suddenly you're getting into a great spiritual discussion. So it takes some effort to keep spiritual talk going on. So let us strive to be sadhus, to be holy people, and with Sri Ramakrishna's help, we can start by trying to spiritualize our conversation more. That's my final takeaway on tonight's reading. So I think we close here. I forgot to ask if there are any comments or questions. I'm sorry about that. We had a few comments, but any other comments or questions? Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityormamritangamaya aviravirma idhi rudrayate dakshinam mukham tena mam pahi nityam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us unto light. From death, lead us to immortality. Reach us through and through ourself, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Om Peace, Peace.